show. Controversy is running wild at this year's World Series Poker. Me and Dan Zack are going to break it down today, as well as talk about the World Series Poker final table. We got 5 players left, $10 million up front. We got a man in a fancy suit. We got a guy that works for Poker Stars. Oh my God. We got another guy that tanks 25 million minutes every single time. And most people on Twitter want to punch him in the fucking face. But I kind of like the guy. I'm going to be honest with you, man. We got another guy in here. We got a couple of guys in there. We're going to talk all about that. And that's it, man. Joining me today on the podcast. By the way, it's good to be back. It's been a few weeks off. It's been an out-of-line summer here in World Series of Poker. And you know what? I think it's going to be a pretty good time, man. Joining me today on the podcast is a young gentleman, one of my favorite people in the poker world. This man plays high-stakes cash games, high-stakes tournaments, mid-stakes cash games, mid-stakes tournaments. He's currently second in World Series Poker Player of the Year. Plays online cash games, online tournaments, Nolan Hold'em, pot limit Omaha, mixed games. I think this kid might actually be able to know how to play every poker game ever invented in the history of poker. There's a very small chance that might be true. So we're going to talk a little more about him. And if you guys watch Live at the Bike, you've seen Dan Zack either commentate or you've seen him play, and you've definitely enjoyed his play. You've seen him mix it up. This kid is not in it at all, even though he sometimes wears an Ivy League shirt like Princeton or Yale or Harvard. And I tell him, hey, maybe we shouldn't go with the Princeton or Yale or Harvard shirt. So it is what it is. We're joined today by one of the co-owners of Live at the Bike, a live stream poker show that I think a lot of us really, really enjoy out there too. We're joined by Dan Zack. Dan Zack, what's going on, brother? Welcome to officially the Poker Live podcast. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, good to be here. It's good to not be sick this time. And that is a strong intro there. I want to defend myself later, but we'll start with the main event stuff and whatnot on the Ivy League shirts and whatnot. What else?
Oh, you have a defense for you wearing a Princeton and a Yale shirt to the poker table? You sure?
Well, you know, Princeton is my hometown, right? Like that's where I grew up. So it's not even necessarily like a university thing. It's just I'm wearing clothes from if you wear Chicago stuff.
I mean, it makes sense. I guess I could wear like it does make sense. When I think of the image I want to give off, I'm not trying to give up. Maybe it works for you though. Maybe you give off the image as the Ivy League kid with the smart guy. I mean,
oh, it's not an image play. It's just I'm incapable of thinking about what I wear an image. I'm just wearing like clothes that I grew up with or clothes.
No. I thought this changed. I thought there was a girlfriend got introduced to the life, and then she was maybe helping on the wardrobe side of things.
Oh, everything away from the poker table is changed completely in the last couple of years, 100%. But she doesn't dress me at the poker table. I just wear like whatever's comfortable, and I just still have all these like hoodies from growing up and all the just comfort clothes, and that's mostly from where I went to school or borrowed sweatshirts from friends or what I have from growing up. So
yeah, if you guys didn't know, Dan Zack joined. Dan Zack actually graduated top in his class at Princeton. By the way, no, not true. Oh, okay, I thought it was true. No,
Albert. So, a guy in a cash game last night asked me if I graduated college, and I said no, and he was like, "Oh, that's a shame. You look smart." And I was,
sounds like my mom would say right there.
I said looks can be deceiving, but it's I did not graduate anywhere, and I definitely didn't attend Princeton. So, as much as the clothes say I'm smart, I don't have as good of a history.
Let's put this narrative to rest. All right, we'll put it to rest. That's fine. Maybe we won't bring it up again. You're still an Ivy League guy to me, kid. I don't know. Something about you. I know a few Ivy League. I have some Ivy League friends. You remind me of one of my Ivy League friends. So I guess that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Look at that. We're already giving more context to who Dan Zack is than I've got context for anyone who's still left in the World Series Poker main event, except Gary Gates. I do know he works for Poker Stars, and he has a very passionate rail. He's got his family there. And I do know Gary, so I know more about him than most people do. But if you got a chance to enjoy any of this World Series of Poker main event coverage, Jack, what are you thinking so far? What do you like of the players? What have you liked from what we've seen from the beginning of the tournament when the man took out his dick in the middle of the Amazon room, mooned the dealer, and then threw his shoe at the dealer, to right now where we're at today, 5 left, 10 million up top? What's been your thoughts so far this main event?
That was madness. I was at like 4 tables over when that happened, and we didn't really understand what happened, but there was just suddenly like an insane commotion. And then getting that story and the video is just, I mean, such a ridiculous story. After Georgie got drunk too on day one, which was really unfortunate. That wasn't even, there was already a crazy story that day, right? Georgie Bellinon like stole a stack in level 1 of the
Okay.
games.
So let's talk about this, and then I want to ask if you saw the dick. So when you say the guy stole a stack, so something happened in day 1 of the main event, guys. You guys didn't see. There was a player who was disqualified, and we saw him he was taken out. He didn't look in good shape, but so he stole a player's stack next to him. The player wasn't there. What was the context of what happened there?
Pretty sure he was just like borderline blackout drunk from the night before of cash games and just came over to play the main without really, thinking. And I think he just like scooped his neighbor's stack and like laughed after winning a pot or something like that. I don't think it was like an intentional steal. He was just made a terribly misplaced joke, is my understanding, where he was just not in like a mental state to understand what he was doing. And you can see that from the pictures. And also I've just played with him and he would never do something like that. And from everything I've heard, it was like blatant. It wasn't like trying to be sneaky. He took like the whole guy's stack and just like scooped it into his stack and just laughed. So I think he was just completely out of it.
So he thought he's being a funny guy. He's like making a joke. Ha ha, I'm going to take this guy. And then they said, no, you're out of here. Get out of here, buddy. You're done. That's
right.
It.
And security came. You can't do that. But like, it's almost so absurd that it's like clearly wasn't ill-intended. Like, I hope he gets unbanned. I hope he gets unbanned from the World Series.
So wait, he's banned from the series?
I think so. He tweeted out he like created a Twitter account and like created like a very eloquent apology. Said this doesn't represent me. Like, I'm really, really sorry. And a lot of people were posting like, hopefully he can be let back. So I just read into the responses that he had been banned. It would make sense for him to get banned if you get physically removed from the Rio.
The old Armenian Mike joke steal, huh? Didn't work out. Didn't work out for Armenian Mike. He got banned from Live at the Mike. It didn't work out for our man Georgie here. He gets banned from the World Series of Poker, huh?
Yeah, there's some intent differences there and some history differences there. So I hope he gets back in.
Well, let's talk about the Naked Bandit. So Naked Bandit, he decided to do that. You're saying you're 3 to 4 tables. So are you able to see the dick, or do you look over and he's got his pants down? And you're sort of like because I feel like you played in some high stakes games before. If you guys don't know, Dan, guy plays a lot of poker. All right, plays in the live high stakes cash games. In the live high stakes cash games, weird shit happens in these games, and you let it slide because if the worse the player is, the more you're going to let him get away with. If a guy's losing $5 million in a poker game and he wants to pull his pants down, the players in the game are probably going to let the guy pull his pants down a few times. I'm going to be honest with you. It's just how it works. So you may have seen something like this before, but when you look over, are you make eye contact? Like, how does it all work out here? You just not, you don't know what happened, and you see the video and you're like, oh my God, I didn't see that.
So like in high stakes games, it's very true. And I don't know. I really don't like the way that poker professionals treat amateurs, and I've like quit games or like stopped attending games regularly where like really nasty behavior is tolerated as a result of someone losing a lot in the game, but definitely seeing some just weird human beings put up with as a result. I had a guy just howl like a wolf and bark like a dog as like his only form of communication for 4 hours, and everyone just sat there like this is fine, like don't worry about it, like this is normal. Because he's buying in.
Was his name Ryan DePaulo, degenerate gambler by any chance? My guy Ryan?
It was not. So there's at least 2 of these guys out there.
I've never seen Ryan actually do that on camera, but I could imagine. I was watching some of his vlog last night, and I could see him just randomly decide to bark like a dog. I just for fun. Like I see like he might throw in that with his normal strategy sometimes too. By the way, big shout out to Ryan. Congratulations on the big score, $200,000 he won in a tournament, and one of the biggest vlogger scores of the summer. Congratulations, brother. Nice work. Actually, I think Negrado may have got a bigger one, but whatever. It's the biggest one to me. It's fine. It is what it is. But yeah, you've seen some weird stuff happen in the games.
Yeah, and you just get normalized to it as you play more live poker and just, day in and day out, just see really bizarre stuff. I personally had my back to the table, and by the time whatever the hell was happening, there was just a huge crowd and everyone shouting around it. So I just turned around and couldn't really see much of anything. And we got our updates, even though we were 4 tables away from Twitter, and then we're all watching it at the table. So you had to be like directly there to see it because it so quickly got swarmed by spectators.
To be honest, Dan, you had to be really close to actually see it.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
I saw the video. I had to blur the video out. I made eye contact with that bud, but I'm just telling you right now, you had to be real close to kind of say, and I understand you're in a poker room. It is what it is, right? You're on a bunch of dudes. You're not the most, you're under an influence of potentially something or whatever's going on. I'm not sure. I have found out more information about what did take place, but maybe we'll talk about that at another date and time. I don't feel comfortable kind of getting to that right now, but
super strange. All of his like Twitter postings and whatnot, he just seemed like a typical like casual poker fan. He has like photos with Alberto and all the other like Negreanu and Helmuth like smiling, staying for pictures at charity poker tournaments or like pulling them aside. Just really bizarre.
Very, very. I mean, this is World Series Poker Day 1. And I guess the controversy, we had a few quiet days in there after the Naked Bandit drama ended. And then the big controversy took place with 11 left in the main event. I made a video about that on my YouTube channel yesterday. It has it got 66,000 views in 24 hours. So, people are very interested. They love controversy. It is what it is. They just love it. So if you guys haven't seen this, which I think most people have seen it, there was an incident that took place where Dario Sammartini opens up early position, middle or under the gun +1. There's 6-handed, 11 players left. And then Nick Marchington shoves all in from the small blind for 22 million in chips. The dealer only counts out 17 million in chips. So she's 5 million chips off, which is effectively, the big blind was 800,000. So it's about six-ish big blind difference. So Dario, without saying call, puts in chips. What did I say? San Martino. So Dario puts in chips. Action, whatever, I can't remember the name they said, but they said something about action and accepted. So he puts in chips, and then the players and the dealer are like, oh no, it's actually 22 million. So in this time, they call the floor over. The floor comes over, and the floor says the action's going to stand. Dario has no objection. Eventually, the hands are tabled. Nick has pocket queens. Dario has pocket 10s, and then Dario flips out, loses his mind, say he didn't mean to call this. He didn't, so after he sees the cards, that's when the objection starts. He argues at the floor for about 8 minutes before Vice President of the World Series of Poker, Jack Effel, comes over. Can't be bothered. He comes over, guns blazing, pulls out the guns like he's the cops taking down somebody on the fucking street corner or something like that. And he says some things. He's got the attitude going on. He lets him know the rule is going to stand. He makes a couple of comments that we're going to remember for the rest of our lives, which is if you're calling 17, you're calling 22. So Dan, your impression of it, you commented on Twitter, you said it was the right ruling, but terrible execution. So what are kind of your thoughts on that whole situation with what took place? Oh yeah, John Cena. He hit him with Jack hit him with the John Cena, you can't see me, a couple times too, which I thought was quite beautiful.
Yeah, I like your clipping of that. So obviously, I mean, I don't understand how we're having an argument after hands are tabled. I would have been curious to see what happens if Jack was called to confirm the before hands were tabled when he was first talking to the floor to get a ruling. I'm pretty sure the ruling that was given was right initially as well, which is it doesn't matter what the dealer said verbally, like you need to confirm with your eyes. I don't know if I would be for or against leniency there in the main event. So like maybe having an issue where like nothing has changed once he's called. He was given the bad number. They haven't turned the hands over. Like maybe I'm okay with having some leniency in that spot where they're like, okay, like you haven't gained any information at this point. Here's an opportunity to like change your mind. Like you didn't do this on purpose. Obviously you didn't make the dealer say the wrong number. Once the hands are tabled, like you are committed to calling. You turned your hand over understanding that you're all in. So I thought it looked a little bit silly for him to argue that. I think he just probably, because I feel like a lot of people that I consider to be reputable have vouched for Dario after this event has happened and said he's a good guy, like he's not really an angle shooter or whatnot. And so I feel like he just got overwhelmed by the moment and just sort of flipped out because he just had lost like a huge amount of, whatever he views as money equity, and just sort of snapped because the situation was so crazy and he felt just like so wronged by the situation.
So you kind of, because that's what I posted the video. a lot of comments up there on YouTube and on Twitter, and a lot of comments on YouTube are actually different than the ones on Twitter. The ones on YouTube are saying that it looks like Dario was trying to pull a fast one on people. It looks like he didn't have an objection until the cards were tabled. He looks up at the floor man. The floor man said it's going to be 22. He looks at the floor man, says, okay. And then that's when the objection starts once you see the cards. But obviously, or something you just pointed out, which is that it is in that heat of the moment. There are 11 left. They've been playing for a long time. There is fatigue that's going to matter in there too. So maybe in his mind, he thought what happened, that's not the way he saw it. But would he have that same objection, which is why people asked, if it was pocket nines?
No, of course he would. Of course it's results oriented. But like what I'm trying to say is people try to paint these situations in black and white when like the picture is gray. It just isn't, everyone isn't thinking as clearly as watching a video from a like third person perspective with like a rational mind. Mm-hmm. Like these guys are playing for amounts of money that may be equal to or greater than their net worth. And you just, it's tough to ask people to act as completely like impassionate, like rational actors. He just took like probably like he's about to lose like the most money he's ever lost in a singular pot in his entire life. And, people's brains can snap in these spots and they say things that they don't mean. And like, that's why the floors are there to enforce the correct ruling and not let you get away with shit. But like someone can argue for something that's wrong without realizing in the moment it's wrong because they're just so heated and like so frenzied or whatever. I just am not a fan of making like character assassinations in situations where people's adrenaline is like through the roof and the rational side of their brain is either low or turned off completely. It's, I don't know, like I feel like I could handle every situation like that really, really well. And that's what everyone commenting thinks as well. They're like, oh, put me in that situation. Like I would do the right thing 100%. But like I see people that I respect sometimes just snap in really, really high pressure spots, and it's a human nature thing. So just judging people by their actions in the absolute highest stress environment that they've ever been in as like their entire character is sort of a thing that I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point and something to greatly consider. Especially, I think it's easy for people to sit at home and sit at home in Kentucky in their second bedroom when they just got off work and they got no repercussions for their comments or statements or whatever, and take a look at this video and say, okay, this is clearly this. But I think you bring up a good point that when you're in that moment, when the pressure's on there and when you're not thinking necessarily very clearly, sometimes I can totally see how you might have that reaction, even though that might not be the type of character that you consider yourself to be, or that the type of character that you carry yourself with on a regular basis as well too.
Yeah, I don't know. People's brains just snap in high pressure spots sometimes. And we just do things that like you would immediately be like, holy shit, why? Like you can see it with the way people play poker too. Like people just make terrible plays or mistakes that like they don't even have a rationale or justification for at final tables or in big high pressure spots. Cause like their brain sort of shuts off and they stop thinking about, how much is in the pot and like what percentage should I bet or whatever. And they're just like all in. Or, they just quickly make a decision just to escape the situation. And I like that. I don't feel that has happened to me in any of these spots, but I've seen it happen to so many people that I'm used to seeing like calm and collected that it seems like a tough thing to judge someone's character on when it seems like these situations just bring out spazzy interactions from people. So
what'd you think about floor man Jack Ethel comes over about 8 minutes in, 10 minutes in, they finally get him. He comes over and he has his back and forth with Dark. So you played a lot of these games. You've seen a lot of floor rulings. You have a lot of experience with maybe not a specific situation like this, but you've been around long enough and seen enough things to have a better idea, I think, than a lot of people are going to have about the situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jack's bedside manner was just pretty cruel in this situation. Like, I don't know how much stress Jack is under or how much work is going on behind the scenes. I'm sure there's a lot. And so, I feel like I always try to remember that when someone snaps at you, it very rarely has anything to do with you and usually has to do with something else that's going on with them. And so again, try to like be less judgmental about these situations to the best of my ability, just because like, yeah, maybe he's like having a really bad week or bad day or whatever, but like he just shows up and, you know, it's a customer who is involved in the biggest pot of his life. And all these guys are like, you know, like losing their minds for how much they're playing for relative to what they're worth or whatnot. And he just came in with such a like condescending and like aggressive attitude. And it was just a shame to see him sort of treat his customers as if like they were wasting his time or annoying him, when it is his job to run the tournament and to just explain the ruling instead of coming in as if he's 100% sure that it almost seemed like he was 100% sure that Dario was trying to cheat, which again is not how I view the situation, and doesn't seem like a fair analysis to have with like coming in cold. Even if that is the conclusion that you want to reach, like you didn't even give him a chance. He just came in with like clearly that was his assumption and had no interest in like listening to the situation. And the rule can be the rule without needing to treat the guy like that. I think that's important.
Right. I kind of, my interpretation after the fact, thinking more about it, was that maybe he comes in, you know, they had to pull. I don't know where he was at. I'm not sure he's even watching the tournament. I don't even know if he knows who's in the fucking tournament, to be honest with you, because it takes him 8 minutes to get over there. Maybe he's in like a back room doing some paperwork or something. Not sure. But he walks over. He's got guns blazing, pulls out both machine guns, and he says, "All right, Dario, let's get to work." He says, "You're not going to talk your way out of this one." You know, you can't see me. He's got kids that like wrestling. John Cena is their favorite character. He just thought it'd be really fun to throw that in there a few times. And then he said you're calling 17, you're calling 22, which some people have interpreted as him saying, if you're calling 17, you're calling 22, sort of referencing a strategic element of poker that you're going to call 17 million chips, you're going to call 22 million chips. Other people have perceived it as you're calling 17, you're calling 22, meaning that you already called the 17. You're going to have to call the 22 in this situation as well.
Right.
So
do we know if the rule, because that is a rule in tournaments sometimes, is like if you don't see like a bet, you're committed to the chips that you've put in the pot, but you don't have to put in the full amount. Like, you know, someone opens and you say call, but you think you're like calling the big blind. You sometimes just owe like the amount that you've put in.
Right. That's true. That does happen. You're right. That's true. I don't know what specific rule is. I have talked, a bunch of people have reached out to me privately, and they've said that are very familiar with the rules. They've said the ruling itself that was made was correct, but you bring up a good point, which is that sometimes in tournaments you might say, "Oh, I call," and they're like, "Oh, he raised 3x," and you're like, "Oh, I'll take it back." So yeah, that definitely does happen pretty often.
I'm curious if he could have folded for 5 million more. Like obviously he never would, and that would make Jack's comment make sense as well. But I'm curious if exactly the way action went, he is entitled to put in 17 million and fold to 5 more if cards haven't been tabled. I don't know. It feels like once cards get tabled, you're just committed.
Yeah, they dealt that flop very fast. It's very weird that they deal the flop so fast, because normally in these poker on TV games, they'll take their time, they'll deal it really slow. And something I was thinking about was that normally I've heard that there would be a tournament director right behind the table in a moment like this. And the reason why the tournament director is going to be right behind the table is that they are going to verify the chip stack counts before any actions type of made. So in a situation like this, you'll have the dealer who counts out the chips, then you'll have someone behind them count out the chips as well, just to verify. And very surprised that that wasn't what took place in this situation too. It doesn't seem like.
So that's more common at the final table itself, right? This was before the final table.
Right. This was with 11 left. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're often more casual, I think, before the final table itself, or like, just before the final table, it is usually more casual than exactly once they're on like ESPN, and I almost feel like that's more for show, but I guess they do it at like EPTs sometimes too. But I don't think they always do that with 2 tables left. Not that I have any experience playing the main event with 2 tables, but
you do have experience winning a bracelet. You are a bracelet winner this summer.
Well, they don't count down they don't count down your stacks in random bracelet events during the middle of the summer. I'll tell you that there's no floor there. We multiple times at final tables this year could not find a floor to make a ruling at the final table. It was crazy.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
You said at the final tables this year you could not find a floor to make a ruling?
Yeah, they felt understaffed a little bit this year. Down towards, maybe not exactly at final tables, but final 2, I remember there was just not a floor present for our tournament at one point. So that was a little bit scary when we had a disagreement. We had
That does sound scary. You're right, Dan. You're right. You're at a final table World Series poker event, most prestigious tournament series in the entire world. A big situation comes up. No one's around. Where do they go? Hey, why don't we have someone stand by this fucking final table, guys? Let's just get someone over here. Why not? But just in case, you never know. If ESPN live stream, CBS Access, Poker Go, maybe we get somebody over here to help.
None of my final tables were streamed, so maybe that was the excuse, was no one was going to see it. But I think what I'm remembering is with exactly 2 tables left, we were on like the secondary feature, and there was like the main feature had broken. So like the Poker Go stream had already finished and someone had won a bracelet, and we had 2 guys speaking Russian in between hands at the table, which is fine in my opinion, and they were both good guys. But there was a 3rd player who really didn't like it and was like trying to get the floor over to like complain, and literally could not find the floor for like 10 minutes. So that was an interesting situation.
Maybe the floor was in the same place that Jack Effel was hanging out at during the final 11 of the World Series Poker main event. Now, also what I've been told is that Jack Effel isn't necessarily the tournament director. He's more of the tournament coordinator. So, but he still is one of the people who is vice president. So he obviously made the final ruling here. He comes in, he makes the final ruling, that ruling stands. But I'm told maybe that's why he wasn't on premise, is because he's not the actual tournament director. We saw 3 guys in there that were the tournament directors. He's more of the person who's the general manager, kind of wrangling them all together, but he's not actually on the floor making the rulings on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, correct. He's never really there in terms of like making rulings or flooring. Like he's the last appeal, and you can sometimes get a floor man to like call Jack to try to overrule them. If you really disagree with a ruling, you can ask to like try to contact Jack, and then if they can get in touch with him, they get in touch with him, and he can make a ruling. But he's never really on the floor making rulings during the World Series. I think he's too senior at this point for that.
Too big time for that, huh?
Yeah, that's what it seems. I mean, I don't have like a direct objection to that, as long as they just have someone who is on premises that's the last call, right? Like it's fair, and hopefully they know the rule book. I don't think it's that common for the last guy to be wrong and Jack to be right when they call him.
I kind of enjoy Jack. I don't know. I've imagined like the tone he had. You can just tell he's argued with one too many Europeans this year. You know, you can just tell like he's at this same back and forth. No call. He's like, all right, buddy, come the. He's had enough, and I can understand that. But yeah, I guess you'd wish he have a little more empathy in the situation. But at the same time, maybe he feels like Dario's just wasting fucking time arguing for 8 minutes. Jack's mind simple ruling, so. Can understand where he's coming from. Some people out there saying like he's got to calm down. They seem pretty upset out there. More people have more experience with Jack, and they've had their own encounters and stuff like that. So it's certainly created an interesting conversation, which is that, you know, sort of what's the takeaway here? How should a floor act? And is the ruling right? And what happens when the dealer makes a mistake? You know, so there's some interesting kind of topics and sub little things to take away and maybe break down. But for ultimately, I think the most important thing is just when you're playing, make sure that you're always sort of watching your opponent's chips. And if you think it might be wrong, just double, triple check it if you need to. And we've seen some people say, well, if they start double and triple checking counts, then the game's going to slow down. So either have that happen or you have an incident like this happen. So it's kind of, you pick your poison with.
I mean, you can double and triple check counts with 11 left in the main and not slow down the game at any other time. Like, don't start double and triple checking counts on day 1 of your 1500. But like, this is $1 million pot, $2 million pot, like from people who all put in 10,000 instead of it being like a normal thing in the game. So maybe treat it just like a little bit differently and have the norm there be something that would not be okay as a norm anywhere else.
Right. I agree with you. I agree with you. So those are a big takeaway. I feel like we covered that one enough. I don't know. If I never talk about this again, I'll be happy. I'll be honest with you. I'll be happy. I really will be. You know, I mean, I know people love the moments like this and they're very divisive. And I sort of, the thing I enjoy the most about moments that take place like this is the divisiveness on both sides, because I feel like my own opinion changes rapidly as I read more comments. Like, because the video has 400 some comments on Twitter. There's hundreds of comments from people just giving their opinion. And I feel like you read some people's opinions you respect a little more. So it's sort of, you give them more credibility, their opinion changes, and then you see this and you're like, oh, maybe they're right. And then it just kind of flips back and forth on a consistent basis, especially when it's like 50-50, kind of like it is now for these different elements of what took place. So that's the part I find the most fascinating, is just seeing how my own personal interpretation of the event changes depending on how I'm influenced by the comments I read. So I guess I find that part kind of interesting.
It's dangerous because I feel like in most of these situations, the majority opinion of the masses is just whatever the most outraged you can be is.
Sometimes I think so, but not really in this situation. I don't think, because I think the most outrage would be as you say, oh, Jack should be fired, Dario's angry, like that would be the most outrage. But it seems like people kind of, they shy away from taking those sort of really extreme stances on a situation like this.
Okay. I mean, I have less experience reading through every poker controversy comment.
Don't do it.
So,
Adam said, you love it, Pop, because you're a drama queen. First of all, no, I do not like drama. People love drama. Do I enjoy it sometimes? Of course. Does everyone enjoy it sometimes? Yes. Would I rather talk about deeper philosophical topics on videos? Yes. Do people care about that? No. They care about shit like this. So you have a decision as a person who talks about poker and creates content, is that, do you want to talk about what people want to hear? Do you want to talk about what you want to talk about? Or do you want to find a middle ground? And I try to work in all these middle things in there. And then sometimes you have a topic like this that comes up and you got to get into it, man. It's practice. I'm practicing for when I uncover and I solve my first unsolved murder through an investigation on YouTube, I'm practicing through moments like this. These are very low stakes. There are no stakes for an investigation like this. But at some point down the line, there's going to be high stakes for an investigation I get into. And I'm going to be happy that I took these kind of moments seriously, put in effort. And then in the future, when there's a bigger thing that happens, we'll crush it. It is what it is. I like it. Makes sense? Does that make sense? That sounds crazy, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Sounds right to me. You're going to have cracked the case of some government corruption. Or
I'm probably going to stay away from those. I'm not going to like in the Storm Area 51 to investigate. I'm probably like, maybe we'll stay away from the more intense investigation that involves some sort of the government being out of line. So
I don't know, man. What's all the prep for if that's not what it's all for?
That's true. That's a good point, man. Got people in the chat. We got my guy Landon, master moderator. What's up, brother? What's happening, buddy? Hope you're doing well over there. We got Rachel Lees. What's up, Rachel? I'm still not sure if you're a woman or a man, but very much enjoy talking to you as well, too. I saw my boy Wayne Chiang out there in the chat, Mr. Pokercraft himself, Mr. Potlam in Omaha, Mr. Texas Hold'em, Mr. I think he tried to hook me up with a woman recently, too. So Mr. Matchmaker himself, Wayne Chiang out there in the chat. What's up, brother Puppy? What's happening, man? Nice to see you, Wayne. I saw my boy Israeli Ron. I saw my guy jamming, Burton out there. My guy, what's up, brother? Nice to see you as well in the chat, too. We got a lot of people in here right now. Thank you for tuning back in. Podcasts are live this week. We're going to be doing one on Wednesday as well, going over the full final table and kind of talking about the final table a bit. Do we have anything we've noticed, any takeaways for yourself, something that comes to mind of a notable thing or person or anything like that?
So I watched the second half. I'll clarify that. I didn't tune in until I think they were 7-handed and then watched pretty much from there till the end. So I won't have any, I don't know if anything like controversial or exciting happened very early on. From the hand histories, it looked like coolers, where the way people busted out, it was like ace queen versus ace jack in the blinds or something. I thought the two big hands that everyone wanted to talk about yesterday were like the king 7 hand and the queens versus 10s versus 8s hand. Are those the two?
Yeah, let's get into those two. So the main hand Dan talked about was king 7. So this happened with 7 players left, and before 7 players left, nothing really of note took place besides this guy Maz was very much pissing people off with his tanking and his antics, and we can maybe get into that. But the hand here in the specific situation is, I believe, the Maz opens up with the ace jack suited, and then he gets 3-bet in the small blind by Kai, who has king 7 offsuit, and then Maz calls. So he's king 7 with the king of clubs, 7 of hearts, I believe. The flop comes down 6-5-2 with 2 clubs. So the pot is about 18 to 20 million chips. Kai has about 28 million of chips. blinds are 4 and 800K at that point, I believe. Actually, I know, I think they are higher, 1.2 million. So 600 and 1.2. And then Kai decides to shove all in overbet on the flop. Maz tanks for a while and then folds. So that is probably the first hand of note. So what are your thoughts on that hand? And by the I'll before I tell what the solver says, I'm gonna hear what the solver Dan Zack says here.
Well, Maz looked like he legitimate. Hold on one second. I don't have my computer plugged in, so let me just plug it in.
The man, we got a charging epidemic here. But Dan said he's actually, I don't. If he said, can say what he wants to say. I mean, you have the stalkers out there. You guys know the women love Dan Zack. The people love Dan Zack.
Got it.
Boom.
Okay. So Maz looked like he legitimately was thinking about calling as opposed to a lot of his other tanks, which just looked like tanks. Like he looked sickened when he folded. Like sort of looked over to his rail and shook his head, and like maybe it's just a great acting job because like he seemed to want to sell that he was thinking about calling in just about every situation, including like the Jack 8 suited that he tanked facing like an open and a 3-bet shove or something.
That got people angry.
Yeah. So like maybe he wasn't thinking about it, but if he was that confident that Kai was light, you can 4-bet jam this hand on the button. If it's like button versus small blind and you have ace jack suited and like you think the guy is getting out of line too often, it's a totally reasonable hand to stuff. So it seemed like if his read was that strong, that this was what was happening, I probably would have just preferred just cramming pre. It's not like your hand is that strong that you can like trap. It's not going to flop amazing on too many boards where you're just like fist pumpingly confident that you have the best hand now. The shove is like insane. The 3-bet is somewhat insane unless you think that your opponent is gonna, massively overfold, which a lot of these guys were. And so maybe just 3-betting trash is a good strategy at these final tables. But the shove is just like you can accomplish the same with some different sizes that don't just get you snapped off by when your opponent just has 9s or whatever and just lose. Maybe again, everyone overfolds at these final tables. Everyone sort of plays scared. The question is like, what would Maz have done on the button facing this 3-bet with 9s or 10s or jacks? Because he was cramming his big hands pre. So like he crammed the queens. I think he 4-bet jammed another hand at the final table, if I remember correctly. So, if you have Kai's rail, I know is like Tony Miles and some other people that are watching the stream and like trying to come up with like clever strategies. Maybe they thought that he would 4-bet jam all of his like medium to large pairs and he would just fold everything on a board like this. And that was their like rationale for this play. But it is crazy and definitely not approved of any. If you want to ask what a solver would do, it's not approved.
Now, according to one of the experts on Twitter, this is GTO. I'm telling you, that's what they say.
Which expert?
Listen, I'm not going to quote the expert. It's a Twitter expert, so we're going to take this with a grain of salt. But I believe somebody did actually send me something with the solver information in there, and they did say it may have been a GTO play by him.
Self-proclaimed expert.
Listen, these Pio. He says, I know it was more of a joke, but funny enough, it is Pio approved, with and without ICM. Even with Maz calling all sets pre-flop, very unlikely. It will most likely even get more folds than Pio.
I mean, again, no, but like maybe if you construct a range that gives, if you give Maz no good hands, like sure, if it just like put in that he jams 7s plus or something and just only has unpaired cards, then maybe it's a jam. But not with like what you're supposed to have here. There's just no way.
Here's what we got.
This is but you need to see what like he put in as Maz range, right? Like this is going to be heavily influenced by what was placed in as Maz.
Well, it's something I can't even bother to go over right now, so we're not going to go over this anyway. I'll just send you the fucking tweet on Twitter, and we can maybe think more about it. If we come to any great conclusion later, we'll go over it. So
I would love to see what he actually input into the hand instead of the output.
Yeah,
The input's really important.
I would too. But yeah, that was kind of the main hand that went down at the final table. And then the other hand that went down was Alex Livingston opened up pocket queens under the gun. I didn't believe it was. I think we're 6-hand at this point in time. Alex Livingston opens up pocket queens. He gets flat called by pocket eights, and then Gary Gates is in the big blind, and he squeezes with pocket tens, and then Alex folds pocket queens, and then pocket eights are folded as well too. Alex had about 44 million chips, I believe, to start that hand. Once again, the blinds were 601.2 million, so he has a bunch of big blinds there still, and that had some people sort of wondering why would he fold queens, and I think Alex maybe addressed it in a post he made too. He didn't say too much strategically wise, but what was kind of your impression of that fold right there?
So I am not an ICM expert. I don't play tournaments. The only time I play tournaments is during the World Series. So I like have not studied ICM. I'm not like a wizard or anything at any of this stuff. My impression is that it's too tight. I'm curious if you assign Gary 0 bluffs and then run this. If it's too tight, I have, from what I've been told by really smart people, it's that ICM, you play really, really tight with stacks like Livingston's. So it might be right if Gary just doesn't have like bluffs and you plug it in, because Gary certainly should have bluffs in this spot, but didn't see him run any like pre-flop bluffs. So I don't know if he does or not, especially out of the big blind. Most players miss these spots because with a lot of the hands that would normally like squeeze as a steal, people generally just flat them in the blind closing action. So maybe it's not crazy and it just looks really silly because his opponent had exactly tens, which is probably the bottom of his value range. And maybe if his value range is exactly tens plus ace king and he has 0 bluffs, like it might be correct to fold queens given the ICM. So I don't want to make like anything too strong. My initial impression was it's too tight. Thinking about it afterwards with like the no bluff situation in the stacks, maybe it's close. I don't know. I'm really not 100% confident. I also know, I thought it was funny that someone dug up that Alex busted or got in. Sorry, he didn't bust, but he got in queens against kings while saying he should have folded the queens pre in the main deep whenever his previous deep run was. And so maybe that was in the back of his mind as well.
Yeah, that was Kevin Martin posted a clip like that from a very similar moment that happened in the past. You're right, where he had queens, your opponent had kings, and Alex said you should have folded the queen. So, yeah, I think Alex probably was thinking that, right, your Gary's range is pretty strong coming there from the big blind. He probably hasn't seen Gary get out of line. I'm sure they have maybe some personal experience outside of this moment too. They probably played a lot with Gary leading up to this point as well. So he's probably thought Gary's just really tight here. He's not getting that out of line. And it's just not worth it to risk it right here. I can pick better spots. I feel like I have an edge in these situations. And
if Gary
argue with that, like, I don't know.
If Gary's range is exactly tens plus ace king, and Gary like folds tens and sometimes jacks to a 4-bet, and calls with ace king, for example, like if you put that as inputs, like it would not shock me at all that you're supposed to fold. Like that's a read that you're making, and like you get super punished if Gary has a pro on his rail who was like squeeze a lot, like people are going to overfold to you, then you just get annihilated by making a fold like this. But if your read is that he's exactly doing this with just that value range, no bluffs, he's going to fold the tens, he might even fold the jacks when you rip it here, I could easily be convinced that like folding queens is right. And like it's just very easy, obviously, regardless of what's right or not, to see the hands and quarterback. Yeah.
So coming to this final table, we got 5 left today. It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And we got some weird stacks here. So we have Gary Gates and Hossein Ensan from Germany. They both have massive stacks, Dan. They have 143 big blinds for Gary and 173 big blinds for Ensan. And then we have the shorter stacks. Kevin Maas has 55 big blinds and Livingston has 38 big blinds. And then we have Dario Sammartino with 19 big blinds. So we have quite the array of stack sizes here. What do you kind of expect to take place? So we have seat one's Ensign Seat 4 is Gary. So we have him a little spread out here as well, too.
It's really interesting what it does to the play. I've seen some interesting stuff on Twitter, which talks about how the pay jumps at the start of the final table aren't that big relative to the pay jumps at the end. And probably the right play at this final table, going back to the Queen's Hand with Livingston also, is to be more aggressive early on, because you can afford to take risks at these really small pay jumps when the pay jumps are abnormally top heavy. As a result of them trying to make sure everyone gets $1 million at the final table. They always have flatter pay jumps than is natural for a tournament at the start of the final table, because they have such a big jump from 10th to 9th every year. But it's important to remember that, trying to analyze these situations from a pure poker perspective can be awkward when people are doubling their net worth with pay jumps and whatnot. So it's tough to ask people to maximize EV when they don't you might not care. The difference between 4 and 10 million might not be nearly as big a difference to you as the difference between not getting that 4 million versus the 1 million or whatever. So it's sort of awkward when you have a $10,000 buy-in that's paying out these amounts. If I was at this final table, I would consider, selling a decent amount of my equity off so I could just play good poker. Because if once it's huge numbers that affect your net worth to over 100%, it might not even be worth it to you to care about the EV. You just want to make it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't get to run this back. And so it's just selling your equity and then you can play poker would make a lot of sense to me. I know guys were out there offering to buy up some of the equity on Twitter, some of the guys that buy pieces that, I'm sure they're giving you a slightly bad deal, or your ICM if you're a good player, exactly, so you don't get to push your skill edge or whatever you sell to them, but then you get to make good poker decisions and some emotional decisions based on the money. As far as what I expect at the final table, sorry, that was a long-winded.
I liked it. It was nice. It was a nice answer.
I would expect. I don't know how much coaching the big stacks are getting. I think Hossein Hassan plays high rollers and is a regular professional poker player. So I expect him to have a pretty good idea of how to handle a final table. I don't know. I assume Gary has very good players on his rail, hopefully helping him out. Again, going back to that spot, I don't know if he has bluffs in that spot or not. He certainly should have, especially when you see your opponent just folds queens in the spot. But those guys should be applying a ton of pressure. The middling stack should be in a really awkward situation. So as long as Dario hangs on, it's just brutal for Livingston and Maz to try to do anything.
I think you're right about Ensign. I did see he won a EPT back in 2015, and it seems like he's involved in a lot of stuff. Gary is not a professional poker player, but he has played poker off and on. He works with Poker Stars. Kevin Maas, I believe, is an amateur. Alex is a regular cash game player. I think he used to coach for it at once, maybe, I believe. But I know he plays higher stakes cash. And Dario, obviously, a long-time tournament player, so we can imagine he's going to be playing pretty well too. So. It should be
Dario and Ensign are the guys with the most experience, and it's funny that they're on opposite ends of the count, because I think those are the two of the harder stacks to play. So
we'll kind of see what happens here. I don't have any expectations for tonight. I can't say I'm extremely excited to watch these 5 play. I mean, it'd be nice to see some different personality or something. I don't quite know exactly what the audience would be looking for. Some people said that it's boring or they haven't had it. But to me, it sort of is what it is. And I've just been trying to enjoy it. I also don't watch many tournaments. So this is kind of the one tournament or one of 5 or 6 tournaments I'll watch each year. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's kind of fun.
How do you feel about the fact that it's live streamed instead of highlights?
Well, I did see something yesterday on Twitter, I think from Chris George, and he said that poker is just better edited. And I mean, I feel that way too. I don't want to sit there and watch 5-6 hours of unedited poker, people tanking, and you don't really get to see many hands. And at least when it's edited, you can get a more coherent story and a more selected story for you as the audience, and you can invest an hour or 2 hours into it, and you can get the meat and potatoes, the best parts of it. And I kind of agree with Chris that I think poker is much better edited than it is watching it live the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially for like if you're targeting casual fans, which is in theory what ESPN needs to do in order to make this worth their while, it seems like a slam dunk. This is like crazy to like be broadcasting guys tanking for 2 minutes pre-flop. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think if your target is like more hardcore poker fan base, then like maybe this is more reasonable. But when you're just trying to get new people into the game, this just cannot be the best approach.
Yeah, it seems like the companies have gone down this live stream path, and it's probably because there have been some live streams in the past that have been successful. And I don't know exactly what the costs are to edit this stuff and produce it, but it seems like every company has just decided to, except Triton Poker. Triton Poker still does some edited stuff. PokerStars vaguely, but I don't see it often. WPT does edited stuff too, but it's on random American TV. You never actually see it. So it seems like Poker Central has gone completely away from really editing a lot of the cash game shows or editing the live stream shows. Obviously, Live at the Bike doesn't edit any shows like that too. ESPN does edit it down, but I think a majority of people watch these live streams. So you do get the edited version and you get the live stream version. So I'm not sure if you can ask for more than having both options to actually watch. And in terms of if there's a way to make live poker a little bit more exciting, I think the shot clock is obviously the number one way to do that. And then the other ideas would be then to evolve the actual production itself instead of using the same production that we've been using now for 10 plus years on these things.
Yeah, I want to just say I think shot clocks would be terrible at the main event table. I love shot clocks. We added shot clocks to the Live at the Bike cash game. I like hate playing without shot clocks personally. I think it is totally unfair to ask people who bought into a tournament for $10,000 that are playing $1 million pots to make the decision that's going to make like completely change their life in 30 seconds. Playing a game that they may or may not have any experience playing. So like that just seems crazy to me. Like if you're at a 100K final table, there should be a shot clock because first place is 30 buy-ins and you've been here before and you know what you're doing. Like the main event final table, like it's going to intimidate. It's going to stop people from playing if they see like this is what happens at the end. And just when they get there, it's going to be so frustrating to make a mistake because you're like, this is already such a high pressure situation. I don't think you can do it. People are calling for it. And I think it would be completely unfair to the players that make the main event final table. And just, I mean, look how many guys that made this final table hardly play poker throughout the year. It's like Maz, this is like his first ever tournament, right? Yeah, his first ever World Series tournament.
The debate on this side would be that because we have inexperienced players putting up 10,000 for this and potentially winning $10 million, and there's $1 million pay jumps, that it would be unfair to those people. I guess the other side, I mean, with another argument you can make is that, well, then this becomes the new status quo, is that it's fine. We sacrifice some of the numbers and some of the people that might play in the short term in order to enhance the overall experience for the players, enhance the broadcast as well for the long term. So while short term, maybe some people don't play because they see a shot clock, but 3 years down the road, as shot clocks become more normalized, they learn to accept that and they understand this is how it's going to be. So I think that when you think about the long-term perspective, it might be good to add in shot clocks on the biggest stage and then have it spread out from there if we can all agree that it enhances the actual player experience. And even though there are going to be inexperienced players who are going to make mistakes in that situation, that's sort of how the game becomes. And it's your goal as the player to get better at making decisions at a quicker pace in situations just like that. And it doesn't have to be 30 seconds, it doesn't have to be a minute, but I imagine there is some sort of middle ground that we can come to. And maybe it's a longer shot clock for once you go deeper in a tournament of this sort of size. I feel like there's ideas that could be tried that haven't been tried yet.
I think you've got me for every single tournament but the World Series main event. Like I'm on board with shot clocks literally everywhere but this event. But it just feels wrong in this event with the people you see that make the final table every year. Like it's just going to be such a disadvantage to like 2 out of the 9 players at the final table every year. And it's just, I would feel so terrible every year watching the 2 guys that just just don't know what's happening and really need time to think about what's happening, to just completely get screwed over by the shot clocks in the biggest moment of their life. It just wouldn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I could definitely do that too.
Yeah, there's just no tournament that's this big. Like, there just isn't. And it's like on such a grandiose scale of big that it's the only one that's just literally, like, almost no matter who you are, it's life changing. And I think that having like a different structure for that is very reasonable.
Yeah, I'm probably fine with both sides. As someone who is more of a spectator for tournaments than a participant themselves in no limit home tournaments, I would prefer a shot clock. But I think that you make a great point, which is that this sort of scale, this sort of moment, the wide array of player skills and experience of players, I think you bring up a good point too. That's true. So I guess maybe, I mean, do people really need this long to think? Honestly, Ned, I've never thought about a poker decision very long ever. So I can't, when people like 5 minutes, I've never thought about a poker decision ever 5 minutes.
No, I can't take it either. And as a spectator, like, it's unbearable. I don't know. It's just, some people really, if you only play poker, once a year or twice a year, like, you're actually thinking through some of the stuff sometimes. Or like, you just need to collect your nerves because you just never like are in like nerve-wracking poker situations where like you have to gamble on situations and stuff. I don't know. It's just like, it's an experience thing as well. And if you just have no experience being there, you might just need extra time just to collect your thoughts and whatnot. So again, I'm on board with shot clocks literally everywhere, just not only in this very specific final table of this specific event. It's the only place I would object to it.
Kush Strain says he's calling the clock on this topic, and I am too, Kush Strain. We're moving on. We're going to talk about Dan Summer right now. Like I said, he's second player of the year, 1 bracelet down, a lot of tournaments he's played. Dan, how's your summer been overall so far from your perspective?
Fun. It's interesting. So every summer I come out and I start by playing World Series tournaments. And my goal in the back of my head is always, I would love to compete for Player of the Year. It's kind of a cool thing. I usually brick the first week and get completely discouraged, and I'm like, no, fuck this, and then end up in cash games for the rest of the summer, and just play like an event here or there whenever I'm bored or whenever there's an event that looks particularly exciting or whatnot. And so this year I got out here and I played the first event, which was the 10K Turbo, no limit, and got 12th. And then I bagged like a top 10 stack in the Big 50 and went deep in some other event. I think the first 5 events I played, I made the top 3% of all 5 fields. It was like the most absurd start to the summer. And then one of those was winning a bracelet in the mixed triple draw. So right out the bat, I had 5 top 3% finishes. I had a 12th, I had a first. And then like the Big 50, I finished, 400 something out of 30,000. And then there was another turbo that I finished like 60th out of like 4,000 or something like that. And then I just had a ton of points in the Player of the Year. I was like, okay, like great. I will, I guess I'll stick to the Rio this year and like actually try to make this happen. So like I played a cash game the day before the World Series started, and I played a cash game yesterday. And those are the 2 cash game sessions that I've played this summer, as opposed to playing cash every single day. So it's been a different kind of summer for me. I can't say that I love showing up and playing every 10-handed 1K no limit table with people who will sometimes imitate what we're talking about on TV, which is like stare you down pre-flop as if like this is the end all be all of the world in level 5 of this 1500, where the structure in 10 minutes is going to be push fold. So can't say that I loved that part, but it's been fun. It's more competitive than I thought in terms of how much everyone cares about Player of the Year, which got me more into it throughout the year. Like Sean Deeb really cares about Player of the Year. Rob Campbell, Phil Hui. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce Phil's last name. They're both really, really into it. People care. Even though there's nothing up top, the World Series doesn't provide anything. Everyone is just talking amongst themselves, talking a little trash, clearly in there competing for it. Scott Clements was another guy that was competing for a while that had a lot to say about it. And so it's just sort of a fun, like, competitive thing to be involved in with some good players and some people that are friends.
Yeah, so there actually is no additional prize for Play of the Year, but you get the bragging rights. I believe you get a banner as well too.
Right. Well, the bonus this year is you get to prevent 2 Sean Deeb banners, which was my selling call for the 100K.
Oh, okay, that's the bonus. Okay, that makes sense. Sure. So Negreanu's really trying to win that, I think, then, huh?
Yeah, Negreanu's very into it too. That's another guy who hasn't been on the leaderboard until the very end, but if you watch his vlogs every day, he like also cares about it. It's like there's a lot of people who it's sort of their number one goal coming into the summer, and as the summer goes on, they fight very hard for it as well.
I love how there's just no prize for it. Give you something.
Yeah.
Nah, fuck it. Give them nothing.
The World Series has, I mean, they used to give a car, and then I think they used to give 10K entries, and then eventually it was just like a main event in Europe seat 10K entry, and then now it's like absolutely nothing. I think it seems like every year.
People, yeah, 30,000 people register Big 50. Nothing. Okay.
Yeah. Every year it seems like they just find things to cut. I mean, whatever. It's a public company, and like they just are trying to increase profit margins every year. Everyone keeps showing up, so it doesn't feel like they're getting like shown that they're wrong in any way.
Exactly. So, right. The professionals are crying about some things, and the fields are bigger than ever. So who's right? Who's wrong? Who should be catered to? The pros or the recreationals in that situation?
Well, they remove first place prize, and people are still multi-tabling to try to win Player of the Year. So, they didn't need a prize to incentivize people. It's a shame. It looks bad, in my opinion. But like, it looks like an intelligent financial decision from Caesars, I guess. So
overall, your summer's been going well though in terms of tournaments, or like is the gauge is that you've won more money than you lost, or because I would imagine that's it, but maybe tournament players think about it differently. I don't really know how you're supposed to adjust your mindset.
I am not a tournament player. Let's start with that. So I don't know. I think it's really dumb. I think tournaments are dumb. I really enjoy them personally, but like conceptually, every time I think about tournaments, I'm just like, wow, this is so stupid. Like, we are showing up here to lose almost every day. It's incredibly depressing when you're not running good. Like in the middle of this summer, I would just have stretches where like I bricked, 12 tournaments in a row, and I would like have to catch myself from like starting to have like the inner monologue of like complaining. I was like, you're having a good summer, like things are going well, like, because you just instantly just feel so miserable when you get coolered 3 times and you get bad beat 3 times, and then you punt it off once, and then you get coolered again, and it's just like, holy shit, like you just go home every day and you've just lost and you've lost and you've lost, and you just never have like any positive reinforcement for weeks at a time, and it's just and then even when you make the money, like you're pretty depressed. Like you literally have to finish first to feel good. Like you find ways to make yourself feel miserable when you finish 4th or 5th in a tournament. So they're just really dumb. I don't understand how anyone does this full time or like around the year. They're sort of entertaining, especially if you're running good for like a short period of time. But wow, like this is not something I would ever want to do for more than a month in a year. It's a pretty depressing lifestyle, I would say.
So would that be your biggest takeaway from the summer? Was that one of them?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like I knew this already. This is why I never even like try, and I don't play tournaments the rest of the year. Like I think I average playing 4 tournaments outside of the World Series each year. I just always have felt that tournaments are really an exercise in masochism, and just you really have to love pain to enter these things. So and I don't.
All right. So what was the motivation for playing so many this summer then? I know it's week started off well, so when the summer starts off well, you say, well, let me see what I can do here. But why decide that in the first place versus playing your regular cash game, especially when you're battling in LA, you're battling online in New Jersey on a regular basis, and we come out here, we're going to have some certain lineups that are going to be much softer than normal.
Oh yeah, it's not a financial decision. I'm going to give an emotional answer, which is that I got into poker watching the World Series of Poker on ESPN. Like that is how I found poker. I don't think there is a minute of footage of the World Series from 2003 to 2014 that I have not watched multiple times.
Okay, me too.
Like the Raz final table that they streamed in like 2005, I've seen it like 8 times. Like there's no clip of the World Series that like little Dan did not watch like 100,000 times on YouTube. So like this was like my childhood was like growing up and watching the World Series. So I just have this like dumb attachment to this is like, you know, growing up, I was always like, this is what I want to do. Like I want to be on the World Series. Like I want to win these bracelets or whatever. And so I just have like this very irrational emotional attachment to the World Series and what it means. And, you know, telling myself, I got into poker when I was 11, watching the World Series. So it was 10 years of basically consuming poker content before I actually went to a casino and played. And so I had a long time to like, you know, wanting to become a poker player, wanting to do this. And the main way that you don't watch cash games really. The only thing that was on was high stakes poker, which at the time seemed completely unobtainable and ridiculous. So I was like, I'm never going to just be able to like light 300K on fire in an evening and just like laugh about it and come back. So the more realistic route was these tournaments that were on TV. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to work towards and make this my career or whatever. And so I still sort of have that in the back of my head. I was very excited when I was 21 to go to the World Series. And I still get stupidly excited for it each and every year just because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just love it for reasons that I can't give you a rational explanation for.
Favorite World Series of Poker moment from 2003 to 2014 that comes to mind?
Let's think.
I'm gonna go with my guy Jerry Yang personally because my favorite prayer and poker moments I've ever seen in my life are with Jerry Yang. So I'm gonna go Jerry Yang. It's got to be mostly main events for me, but Jerry Yang's gonna be up there for me.
A lot of Darvin Moon moments when Darvin was his run. Jamie Gold's entire run was like amazing to watch as he just like announced his hand in every single hand for like, I don't know, 10 hours of World Series coverage of like edited clips and just everyone calling him when he said he had it and everyone folding when he told them he was bluffing. It just was like great television. I'm trying to think of some other old ones, like all the Joseph Chung blow up, and then like that Italian guy against Joe that like dealt him the bad beat, and then like literally got possessed by like a devil afterwards and was like running around. So, like, that's amazing. Felipe Ocondio.
Ocondio, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
What do you have? He had what do you have, like a 7-6 or something like that versus aces, 7-8 versus aces. Flop was 6-6-7 or something like that.
Yeah, he flopped a pair on a paired board. Like he flopped 2 pair on a paired board.
Right, and then it came out runner straight, something like that, and you cracked the he went jump, something like that.
Exactly, yeah. Even crazier because it was like 10 times louder than that. So, yeah, like anything like that is amazing. Honestly, like the Raz final table that I just mentioned, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's literally like Howard Lederer and a few other guys that are old school that I don't remember sitting around the table talking about what a terrible game Raz is. Like they literally spend the entire coverage just saying, wow, this game sucks. Like I hate Raz. And ESPN somehow decided to stream that. So I don't know. There's I could list these for forever, like the no limit deuce final table that they stream. They've only streamed like one of each of the mix events back in the day, with like Barry Greenstein was at that final table with a bunch of characters like just saying absurd shit. There's the Chao Jiang I Love Poker at the PLO final table where he's just like rubbing his chest and it's just like I love poker after like someone gets an embat against him or something. It's I don't know. So many of those clips are amazing, and I just have seen them literally so many times growing up, just like watching them over and over again, like imagining like this is where I want to get, like visualize or whatever. So They did a really good job back then. And again, going back to like streamed content, full streams versus like edited content. Like the edited content back then was amazing.
Oh yeah, they really put that together with the stories and with the B-roll clips and kind of they go. How Daniel Negreanu was betting on a golf. He's betting $100,000 on a field goal. You know, like they go to the field goal. They go to. I thought it was really fun. They go to some, and I liked it when the people they'd ask someone a question. The guy would be like, "I'm a firefighter," and you learn in fighting fires that it's all about putting out that fire. When I learned to put out that fire, it really taught me how to be a good poker player. No matter what the person's job was, it always correlated with making them a better poker player. They'd be like, I'm a garbage man. When I take out that garbage, it teaches me discipline. Discipline I learned helps me fold the pocket twos to a 4-bet all. It kind of like every segment would be the guy talks about his job and then talks about how he's a good poker player. So I really miss those little clips. We're not given that much context anymore about players, about what their jobs are, and about what makes them a good poker player because they have that job.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is most people that are still around poker are like somewhat disenchanted with poker. They're like either professional players that have played millions of hands, or they're recreational players who have played a ton of hands and like sort of know what's up. There's very few like people that are newly getting into poker these days, and are people that like think about the game like that are playing at anything resembling higher or mid stakes. And so it's just a tough collection of players these days to find anyone like that, which is a shame. But it doesn't feel like they're trying as hard as they used to either, which also sucks.
Yeah, that's a good point about people that been around for a very long time and maybe they don't have very interesting story. I feel like everyone's got interesting things because if I get you on a podcast for an hour and a half, I'm gonna find some interesting things about you. So it just takes some digging sometimes. But I do think you're right that a lot of people are disenchanted with poker. And people that share the enthusiasm, like me or like you might share, are unfortunately not as common, I believe, amongst professionals. But I do believe that attitude is common amongst recreational poker players, which is why poker is still very popular. But you're right. There are a lot of professionals out there who do probably not want to be doing this anymore as much as they are. And I think that will definitely show. And also, you know, over the World Series poker time, your energy gets beat down and you want to get the fuck out of Vegas. So I can understand that as well too.
Yeah, it's not just the World Series. Like it just sucks. Like I feel like half the cash games I play contain people that just like that are professional poker players that are there making a living off of other people at the table who just like actively engage and talk at the table where they're just like, I hate this. Like I don't want to be here. And it's just like I don't know. It's just every year it's like slightly more common. You hear it more frequently. People just more jaded. And it just takes away. I don't know. More and more people are learning to just get out of poker when they reach that point. But a lot of people feel like they don't have other options, and it just seems like a common topic of discussion at the table that just is getting more and more common as time goes on.
Which it does make sense because the poker grind is a very specific type of grind that is very repetitive in nature, that involves massive exploitation and manipulation of weaker player strategies. And I imagine that can wear on your mind over time as well, too. And also, as you get older, you develop more interest as well. And you don't necessarily want to be sticking to one major game type. Maybe you want to start spreading out and learning more about this, or spending more time with your family, or spending more time with your friends. So once you spend a certain amount of time on one thing, you just naturally want to maybe spend time on other things like that. And unfortunately, there is no blueprint for poker players to then decide, what do I do now? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with, as you mentioned, is that they want to get out of it. They want to do something else, but they just don't know where to go. And that's because it is not as defined as where to go. And also there's no book to read. It's like, okay, well, where do I learn? It's like, well, you don't really know. It's like, hey, Joey, do you know someone that quit poker and did this? Like, I think that's sort of most people's experience on learning how to get out of poker too.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the other issues is most poker players have like self-trained that money in EV is sort of the end all be all, which is like a really shitty way of looking at life. But as a result, it's very hard to find something, at least in the immediacy, that has anywhere close to like your earning potential if you're a strong poker player than poker. And so a lot of people just don't find outs because they can't self-justify whatever the drop in income is. And so they just remain unhappily in poker instead of doing some of the other stuff they can.
Very, very great point, Dan. Very great point. I know that personally for me, that has been the case for a long time in terms of getting motivated to very much pursue business and try to make more money in terms of what I do, because it's like the grind you put in, and I guess it's the mindset of it comes, a lot of it comes long term. But to me, it's like, well, I can make this, I can go play poker and make $30,000 a month and maybe play for a week. So it's like, why don't I just go do that? And that's what I did for a very long time, was I couldn't get away from poker just because my hourly and my EV was so high. And it just didn't make much sense to go grind out a $200 ad sponsor. You know, it's just like, I still even can't quite wrap my head around the differences between making money from poker and then making money from business. And that's why it makes me a bad businessman, is because I just can't visualize it in my mind. Like poker, I can visualize it so well. It's like, okay, you want to make money? You fucking play poker. That's it. That's all you do. You do that. Whereas this other thing is like, maybe you make a 7-minute phone call and you make money. And that's all you have to do. Just a 7-minute phone call. That's it. So it's a very different world in terms of, different world for me, for sure. It's something I'm learning about and probably struggle with too.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough challenge for people that are looking to exit poker. And I think the ones that do ultimately exit seem, for the most part, to make it eventually and find happiness. But making that leap of faith seems very difficult for people to like chase whatever their passion is at the expense of like short-term earnings. Just because that's so hardwired in so many poker players' minds, is like earnings now is more important than anything ever in life. Which is a shame, again. And I feel like this is a conversation I have with so many friends these days who like want to get out of poker and like want to be convinced that it's the right decision to get out of poker, and like cannot talk themselves into it for this reason.
You are also stating why, if you are passionate about poker and if you are putting in work and you are trying to get better, you're going to succeed, because you have so many of these mindsets who are ready to get out, that when you actually, and that's just how it is in media too. It's not just like it's on the player side. It's like this on the media side. It's like this on the people that work for World Series poker side, the company side of things. People feel this way all around the industry. And it's like, once again, people said it's probably like that with any job. But if you actually are fired up and you are excited and you are passionate and you are ready to get after it, then that's what's going to give you your edge. And that's what gives me my edge when I've been doing content. Is like, you know, when I started doing a podcast, before there weren't really many podcasts, and most people that did podcasts, like, we could debate how much they really want to be doing a podcast. So when someone starts off and they actually want to be doing it, they're going to succeed at what they're doing, because, wow, this guy actually gives a fuck. Look at how he talks. Look at his passion. Look at the energy they have for it. And I think if you're out there sitting there saying this, when you hear this, this is a good thing for you, because now you know that you got a lot of weak mindsets out there that are ready to give up at any given chance. They're ready to find something new. So if you're going to keep pushing and keep trying to get better, then you're going to overpass these guys and you're going to have a lot of success for now and for the long term. So I look at that, if you're someone who's aspiring, look at that as a positive. Don't look at that as a negative.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is true of almost any industry, poker included, is just like, people work way less hard than everyone thinks they do. And when you do work hard, like, finding success is generally less difficult than you expect. Like you often, especially in like things where you have to compete with other people, like you give everyone else more credit from the outside. But once you actually start putting in reps or putting in time and effort and work, you find out that like almost no one is like giving it their all. And so anytime you give it your all in something, I feel like you are going to find a lot of success if you're, you know, reasonably smart and in any way talented in the field that you're trying to push. Like, I could work really hard and have no success making visual art. Like I can't draw, and no matter how hard I work, I don't think I'm gonna be able to draw. But if you're in something that you have, you know, some skill set in, and you work your ass off, like, you're going to find success. Every single poker player that transitions to something else reasonable within their skill set that then goes all out, like, finds success in that realm, it seems. It's just, and then the stories that they bring back from whatever they had was just like, wow, like I was really intimidated or whatever. And then I realized no one's trying. Like, everyone is sort of autopiloting their way through, you know, insert X industry that they got into. And, you know, all you had to do was just work hard and put in effort, and you usually find the success there.
100% agree. Consistency, effort, energy. You put it in there, you're probably going to have success with most things. And as you mentioned, a lot of times not many people are trying. So it's
no one is trying. Like everywhere, no one is trying. It's crazy.
Except at the online Omaha cash game tables where people seem to try. So,
well, the problem with online and like high stakes online or whatever is, it only takes 10 people in the world to be trying to be sitting at every single table, right? Mm-hmm. When you do something in a live industry, like you're only competing against like local entities or whatever. Whereas when you're trying to play Pot Limit Omaha online, 15 people in the world can be the only 15 people that are winning at like high stakes in the game that you're playing. And so it only takes 15 people in the entire world to be trying hard and be smart to like completely lock out that industry. That's why online poker is like reaching the eventuality where it's just like exceptionally difficult to beat. As a result of that, there's just not enough fish so that like every top pro can play every single table that's running on every single site that's publicly available to them. Mm-hmm. And that's a real problem. Bots are also becoming a problem, but that in and of itself, even if there wasn't a botting problem and a solver problem, would be an issue.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic on its own, actually. Need to think more about that one as well. That's a good point, I guess. So I guess the argument would be then, or I guess not even an argument really, but the other side, kind of just a further discussion on that would be that in previous years, there were more fun players. And when there's more fun players, there's more regulars that are able to then make a living or make money in those games. Whereas when the fun players then drop off, the better players rise to the top and they destroy the weaker regulars, and then the weaker regulars stop playing there, have to drop down stakes, and then at some point you're only left with the top regulars, the best bum hunters, and the small number of fish that are still left.
Yep, that's pretty much the end game of an online poker ecosystem, and that's pretty much played out on any site that doesn't limit its player base at this point. The games that are left that are like publicly available that aren't like private sites are really, really tough. And it's the same people on every site who are really, really good and not a lot of in between.
Rachel makes a good point. In jobs, you get fired. In poker, you're the only person who can fire yourself. So many get fired only by going broke. That's a good fucking point right there.
Yeah.
Facts right there. That is true. That's facts. Your backer drops, so you go broke. Dan, what's the biggest thing you learned this summer, brother, from this grind, this tournament grind? And by the way, I find it either very or heavily amusing that you don't play tournaments, you don't study tournaments, but you're going to probably win Tournament Player of the Year if you go to Europe. So I find that quite. I don't know what that says. If it's more, it says something, right? And I don't know what it says, but it says something. So what's kind of been your biggest learning thing that you've learned this summer?
I mean, is how many people that are in contention for Player of the Year play tournaments outside of the World Series? Like, Player of the Year at the World Series requires you to know how to play all the games. So, like, no one is going to compete for it without playing 10K mixed events, really. And there aren't mixed tournaments that run throughout the year. So most of the people that play these things are cash chain players. And then usually the ones who are competitive for Player of the Year are the ones who also sort of know how to play Pot Limit Omaha, No Limit Hold'em or whatever, and can hop into the other half of the tournaments that are held during the summer. But by far the most Player of the Year points available are in those small field mix events. And so it's not really a Player of the Year is not really for tournament grinders. It's for mixed game players who come and play these championship events. I think I'm okay at tournaments. I mean, I certainly think I'm a favorite in each and every field. Whether or not I'm the best, I know I'm not the best at the no limit and PLO tournaments because, there are guys who literally dedicate their lives to learning how to play no limit tournaments. So I would be incredibly naive to say that I am better than them because, or just incredibly cocky or whatever. Like, these guys study day in and day out how to beat no limit tournaments. And I think about it the night before. So there's a little bit of a difference between those two approaches. But I think I understand most of the concepts. Like, I think I'm intuitively good at just tournament theory and just playing poker in general. And that's all it really takes to be competitive in these things. So what's the biggest lesson I learned? One of them is that I could never play tournaments for more than 6 weeks in a year, ever. I am so spent. And like, I went and played cash the last 2 nights and like was just so much happier instantly about like, oh, this is great. Like when I win a pot, it matters, instead of like 98% of the time when I win a pot, I make zero money in the tournament. Like it's just refreshing concept for like things to matter. And like trying to care about day one of tournaments is so brutal, where you're just like, I'm not going to cash this tournament anyway. Like this pot meant nothing. Like it's just, I don't know, not about it. So I don't know. We'll see. If I go to, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to Europe to chase that private jet.
Which private jet should we take, Dan?
To Rosvedov.
What do you want to do? You want to take the G4, the G5? What do you think?
Is there an airport within a 2-hour drive?
Well, they're going to take us outside of Rosvedov, and then Leon will give us a car, and we'll take the car there. That's sort of the thing in that. Maybe they have some people in the car. I don't know who's in the car. There's just a car. It's waiting for us. There we go. There. They maybe get a helicopter or something like that. I don't know. You never know.
Well, if Leon wants to send a private jet, then that's a good jet to board.
Leon, we have the World Series Poker Player of the Year right here, waiting to come to Europe. Waiting to come to casino. Can you please send him a private jet? He's ready to get out there.
All I need is a private jet to get there, and then I'm in. So
jump on Helmut's jet. That's a good point. What if all the Player of the Year contenders all load up in a jet, and we all I'm not on there, but I'll just go for fun too. But is it not fun there? I kind of want to go. I've never been there before. Leon's always inviting me out there. I kind of want to check it out.
I have never been. I know most years, like half of the people in contention go. I think last year, actually, Sean was the only one who went. I think Ben, you skipped it. Joe Cata skipped it. I know this year, I don't think Rob Campbell is planning to go. And I think a couple of the other guys are on the fence. So not entirely sure exactly who's going to go out. I know Sean is going to go out for sure. Sean really, really, really cares. It's funny, Negreanu, I have not heard him say if he plans to go or not. I assume he does, just given that, he vlogs every day saying his number one priority is Player of the Year. And now he's definitely in contention. So would expect to see him out there. But I just have to talk. I just have to figure out, like, it's a long time, man. It's a month for 11 events or 10 events. It's and I can't even play all of them. Like, one of them is a 100K high roller. One of them is a 25,000 euro short deck tournament, which I've never played before. Another one is another $25,000 euro no limit tournament, which like I may or may not be comfortable selling to, because like if it's a very tough field, like I don't want to sell and just like screw over my friends just so they can do me a favor to play. And I also don't just want to light 25,000 euros on fire. So I don't know. It's a call. It's a game time decision.
We shall see if it does take place. We'll be paying attention. What do you have planned for after the World Series here?
Go home, sleep a lot, sleep for like 5 days straight. Maybe. I'm so behind on sleep. It's insane. Like I don't know if I told you, but I was at Wynn playing cash yesterday until 6:30 in the morning, and like had to quit to like objections because I was like, I have to go. Like I need to be up in 3 hours to like get ready for this podcast.
Now it makes more sense why you texted me at 3:30.
Yeah. But like that wasn't even that abnormal. I feel like I have trouble sleeping during the whole series, and I always wake up really early no matter what time I get back to bed. So I'm gonna sleep, go back to home, hang out with family, hang out with girlfriend. I have a trip with my brother planned to go to Scandinavia next month, and then a trip with the girlfriend to go to Pacific Northwest. We're gonna go like Seattle, Vancouver, Portland trip, road trip there. Besides that, I just moved back home to the East Coast. So I've been in LA doing the Live at the Bike stuff for the last year and a half. But I just moved back to New Jersey. So play poker when I'm there. We have cash games at parks. We have cash games at Borgata. Nothing too crazy, nothing like what's on Live at the Bike, but big enough to be happy with, and just spend some more time with family, friends, girlfriend. That's the plan.
Sounds very peaceful.
Yeah, much lower stress than the last month for sure. Much less hectic. We only play. The nice thing about the East Coast is there's only games 4 days a week and really only 3 days a week. So you get a lot of time off. Whereas when I'm in LA, I feel like there's a game 7 days a week, and when there's a game 7 days a week, I often end up playing 7 days a week. I'm not very happy when doing that. And so forced self-control seems to be a better way for me to control myself these days than voluntary self-control. I don't seem as good at that. So
it's tough when the money is the focus and the EV is the focus, and there's a good game, and you have an edge. And
so the funny thing is, I don't think that describes me. I just really like playing poker in a way that it seems hard to find too many people to relate with in the games that I play. But like, I play poker with my girlfriend's family, and I'm like very happy. But I feel like everyone else like couldn't want to get away from poker more when they're away from the table. But like, I really enjoy it. It's sort of like I grew up playing it. It's like been a staple of my life the whole time, and I haven't burned out in any way from it. So I often will play other games than poker when away from the table, but like pretty much I'm just obsessed with playing strategy games. And that's like my hobby and entertainment and job and everything. Like I really, really like it. And so even when we're home, like all I'm doing is playing games on days that I'm not playing poker. But I find that I have more fun doing that just because like I like playing games not for money because it's not as stressful.
Right.
And so it's easier to do that when I'm home than when I'm in LA.
Guys, I meant to wrap this up at 12:30. I have something I need to do, and Dan also is going to go play a World Series poker event. But I could tell that this podcast could go on. Wait a second, there's only 420. There's 420 people watching, and 5 people liked it. That can't be real. If we don't get more than 5 likes, I'm fucking quitting poker. I'm done. I'm gonna be a Connect 4 content creator, and me and Dan are just gonna play Connect 4 every day on fucking live stream, and we're gonna become the best Connect 4 players in the solve game in the entire world, and we're gonna battle the bot to a draw.
I already am. I know Connect 4.
Me too. What are you thinking? You thinking we got a little showdown?
I don't think it's a very exciting game for a showdown. It's a very solved game.
You play me to a draw every time, and I can play you to draw. I can play you. You think so?
No, first player wins, man.
So you think that no matter what, you'll never make a mistake from the solver?
I will beat you every time if I go first. Yes.
I'm in. Let's do it. I won. I haven't lost Connect 4 in a very long time, so this is a good thing. I won the Gambling Olympics last year. I was the Connect 4 champion. Shout out to the Gambling Olympics. I'd be more than happy if we have a little challenge about a little showdown. That sounds fun.
Okay. Whatever you want, man.
Do you play checkers too?
No. Well, I do, but like I don't know checkers.
Oh, damn. Oh my God. I've never actually played with someone that knew checkers in quite a long time. So I used to, when I was a teenager, I was one of the, on the Yahoo streets, I was one of the top checkers players there. That was my little known fact about me.
I can add to this. I played, like, Facebook came out with a very popular Connect 4 game on Facebook, and I got to global rank #1. It was like 100 and I don't know, there might have been like 1 million users, and I got to global rank 1. It was that was when I learned it. It was like stupidly competitive Daniel in 9th grade or whatever. It was just like, I'm gonna get to the best at this, and then I just grinded it.
Did they have a solver you could play against back then?
Yes, there's like little like JavaScript apps that you could launch that would like teach you how to play.
Okay.
It's not super complicated. Like it took less than 4 hours to learn, maybe less than 3 hours to learn. And
right.
It's just very repetitive.
I'm pretty sure you could teach most people just by teaching them about how if you control the center, that's a very GTO strategy in Connect 4, and you can make them an infinitely better player pretty quickly with just that.
Sure. Well, then just the other explanation that's important is that like whoever goes first is entitled to the odd numbered squares or circles, and whoever goes second is entitled to the even. So like you can only win if you set up so if you go first, you need to set up a win on the 3rd row or the 5th row. And if you go second, you're trying in theory to set up a win on the 2nd, 4th, or 6th row. And like telling people that helps them a lot, because like people set up win conditions that don't work in the game if you set up the wrong.
I'm not going to tell them that.
Okay. Well, too late.
You tell them that. Now
120 people just became experts at Connect Four.
They ain't watching right now. They already tuned. They don't care. They don't care what's happening out there. Guys, that's it. I got to wrap it up. I got to get out of here. Dan's going to get out of here. He's going to go to the Rio, and there's a very small chance he could win a World Series poker bracelet. Still, Harbs says he's awake. Let's go. Harbs, we're wrapping it up. I'm going to be back tomorrow with a video. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be on the main event or it's going to be on a fight investigation breakdown. I got a Disneyland fight I need to break down. You seen this fight at Disneyland, bro?
I have not, no. Is it worth watching?
It's bro. It's a guy in a white shirt versus a guy in a black shirt. The guy in the white shirt's got his girlfriend with him. The guy in the red shirt's got his girlfriend and his wife with him. The guy in the red instigates a fight with the guy in the white. The weakest, they're like, huh, 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 huh. The weakest punches I've ever seen in my life. At some point in time, the mother gets knocked down. The guy in the red shirt's mom gets knocked down. He's like, who knocked my mom down? Someone says it was your girlfriend. Then he starts beating the shit out of his girlfriend. It is fucking crazy.
Jesus.
He turns on his teammate, starts beating her. It is fucked up. And then finally what happens, like there's no security. It's like Jack Effels. We're fucking the security guy there. No security. So finally he starts beating the shit out of her for a while. It's fucked up. And then there's 4 guys coming on top. And then a guy comes out of nowhere, puts him in the sleeper hold like Jake the Snake Roberts, WWE 1991. Just chokes him out from behind. The little guy in a red backpack. It's crazy. It's a crazy fight. And there's a lot going on there.
In paradise, man.
Yeah. And when I say the fight, you get fired up. You're like, I want to know the fight. I'm telling you, I was watching the fight. I'm like, I watched it 7 times. It wasn't too graphic. Come on, stop it. It's not too graphic, Cold Runner. What are you talking about right now?
Yeah, man, that content's above you. It's way too strong for your viewer base of all 13-year-old girls.
It really is. Guys, that's it. I'm out of here. We'll be back soon. If you want to follow us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. And me and Dan are going to do another podcast soon because we got a lot more to talk about still. So that's it. Peace out. Much love. Take care. Boom.